see China come into the market as a significant importer of corn. That will have another dramatic impact on the global corn balance sheet, potentially not already factored in. Of course, the market has already factored in some demand for imports of corn this year, but the quantum could be much greater than the 5 million tonnes that have been talked about to date. This will depend a little bit on what the reality of the crop in China as we go forward, but clearly structurally we see an opening a gap. More demand out of China represents a tightening of the balance sheet, whether it comes out of the US or out of South America. We're still going to see a tightening of the balance sheet. Ethanol demand for corn remains very strong. And so we've got to see some demand destruction somewhere in the complex. And clearly, based on what I've just told you about the pressure on the Chinese authorities to keep inflation under control, you would expect that demand destruction to come from the US meat consumer, the consumer who hasn't fully recovered in terms of their wealth position with their housing industry, and unemployment still sticky high at over 9.5%. So the US consumer is probably the person who will put their hand up first and say no more, or I'll keep trading down. So that's something I think the industry has to think about in terms of how it goes forward and how it manages potentially higher and more volatile input prices this year. On the demand side, I think exports will be strong for the US going forward. The US dollar remains fairly weak against global currencies for lots of different reasons. That's unlikely to change unless we see this geopolitical disruption create a real disconnect and a flight to quality, in which case you'd see the US dollar recover again. But we would see that exports of US meat will continue to be strong. US became a net exporter of beef this last year, which is unprecedented. Traditionally a larger importer than an exporter. So we're seeing a lot of shifts in terms of the industry and how it's positioning itself in the global marketplace, and that's that's a positive story, I think, for US growers. Import competition is more difficult with a lower dollar. Export opportunities are greater, and we see those opportunities growing in the coming year, and China could well be a large one, depending on their regulations that they take. Already you think they will take a lot more animal protein in the year ahead.